Hello, folks. Let's just start kind of ish where we left off right before. Alright, who's next? Santa's gaze moved across the three people left. Finally, they stopped on Junpei. Junpei, which door do you want? At last, Junpei's mind was already made up. On Facebook, I asked all of my random friends on there a question of which number do they prefer, 3 or 8? And 15 had 3, whereas 9 had 8. So, I want to go through door number 3. No, you can't. Huh? Why? Because it's impossible. If we split ourselves into 3 and 3, then we give up going through door 3. Why? The bracelet numbers for the 6 of us are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 2 combinations that can go through door 3 with 3 people. 3, 4, 5 or 6, 7, 8. That's it. Of course, 2 teams can't go through the same door. I see. That means that one team would get left behind. That's right. That doesn't happen if we go through door 7 or 8. No, they're fine. We've got 3 options. Santa began to explain. Plan A. Go through door 7 with 3, 5, 8, and go through door 8 with 4, 6, 7. Plan B. Go through door 7 with 4, 5, 7, and go through door 8 with 3, 6, 8. Plan C. Go through door 7 with 3, 6, 7, and go through door 8 with 4, 5, 8. Those are the only 3 options. That's it. At least if we want to get all 6 of us out of here. That was when Junpei realized. Plan A divides into 2 teams, 3, 5, 8, and 4, 6, 7. Plan B divides into 2 teams, those. And Plan C divides into 2 teams, which are those. There was one thing they all had in common. In every single combination, 5 and 6 were never on the same team. In other words, if all 6 people were to move forward, Junpei and Jun would have to be separated. Jun and Junpei had been friends since when they were kids. He trusted her more than anyone else on the ship. If he chose 7 or 8, he'd be taken away from her. Was that something he was prepared to do? Anyway, that's the deal, so think it over. You got 2 choices, 7 or 8. You can't choose 3. If you choose 3, you're going to be leaving 3 people behind to die. So what are you going to do? 7 or 8, time to choose. Junpei thought hard. After thinking over, his conclusion was... Well, we already heard the polls, so take risk and choose door 3. Sorry, Santa, but I still want to go through door 3. What? That's nuts! You gotta be crazy! Why the hell are you so obsessed with that door? Junpei paused. He swallowed the words he'd been about to say. I'm just curious about door 3, that's all. That doesn't explain shit! I've got a reason. I'd be happy to explain it to you if you'll just come with me. With that, he began walking towards the door. Their curiosity likely getting the better of them, the others followed. A few of them looked a little suspicious, but Junpei told himself that wouldn't matter. He kept walking and kept silent. Eventually they arrived at the number 3 door. Junpei stopped. I'm curious about the red. 7, would you mind authenticating for me?
Huh? Why?
Please, just do it. He stared at Junpei for a moment, then grunted and laid his palm heavily across the on the scanner.
Happy?
Yeah, thanks. The number 7 had been entered into the red. Next is June. Please touch the red just like 7 did. Jumpy, what are you trying to figure out? Junpei thought about his answer for a moment. I think I might have found another way out.
Huh?
What? Really? That got them excited, just as Junpei had intended. Now, please, June. Okay. 7 plus 6 is 13, 1 plus 3 is 4. With those 2 numbers in the red, Junpei had what he wanted. He casually placed his own hand on the scanner, and the 3rd asterisk blinked on. 4 plus 5 is 9. Alright. The only people who haven't authenticated now are Santa, Clover, and Lotus. So, what's your point? You don't get it? Think about it. What's the sum of your number and Clover's? 12. And what's the digital root of that? 3. Which is Santa's number. By the way, Lotus, what's the number currently in the red? 7 plus 6 plus 5 is 18. It would be 9, right? Yes. And what would the digital root be if you add 3 to that? 3. The door's number. There you go. Hey, wait a minute! What the hell are you up to? I'm not up to anything. I'm just waiting. Waiting for what? I'm waiting for the balance to shift. Santa? Or Lotus and Clover? Once one of you moves, the other won't have a choice. So I'm waiting. Junpei laid his hands almost casually on the lever.
You son of a bitch! You tricked us! Then all that stuff you were going on about is bullshit!
Bullshit? I don't think so. Didn't I tell you I'd figured out another way to get out of here? This is it.
Why the hell would you do something like this?
Junpei glanced at June. Jumpy.
You did this just so you could go through the same door as June? That's it?
Santa was furious. His face was red and flecks of spit flew from his lips as he spoke. Junpei closed his eyes calmly and then opened them again. So, who's it gonna be? Santa or Lotus and Clover?
Shit.
We're going. Clover! Lotus leapt forward. She grabbed Clover by the sleeve and ran for Junpei and the door. Caught by surprise, Santa froze for a moment, then shot forward like a bullet from a gun. Lotus had a head start, but Santa had the advantage in size and speed. Almost immediately, he passed Lotus and Clover. No! Wait! Santa did not hesitate.
Urgh!
He slammed his hand down on the red.
This is insane! This isn't right!
He glared at Junpei, his chest heaving. Yes, well, you may be right. Junpei's voice was cold, but not without effort. He turned to the red and pulled the lever. With the sound of metal on metal, the door opened. It would only remain so for 9 seconds. There was no time to think. Go! Junpei and his 3 reluctant companions jumped into the door's gaping mouth, one after another. No sooner did they enter than an all-too-familiar noise sounded from their left wrists. The detonators had activated. Junpei looked back only once and saw Lotus and Clover on the other side of the closing door. They stood still, stopped where they had been when Santa reached the red. The defeat and desperation on their faces tore at Junpei's heart. Then the door closed and they were gone.
You son of a bitch, Junpei! This isn't fair!
Santa rounded on Junpei, lightning crackling in his eyes and his knuckles white.
You realize what you just did? You left them out there and they can't... Shut it! That's enough!
It hadn't been Junpei that spoke, but 7.
We gotta find the dead or none of this is gonna matter!
The clock was ticking. The dead was their only chance at survival. Unless they could find it and deactivate their detonators, the 4 of them would be...
We got less than a minute left! There's no time for screwing around! Get moving!
They scattered and began to scour the room. God damn it, more of 7's voice. This is gonna... The deactivation device was nowhere to be found. Corridors stretched out in 3 directions, but everyone was blocked off by a wall of metal. There was only one way out. One other door.
There!
7 ran for the door, rusty iron thing. His large hands grabbed hold of the handle and pulled. The room inside was pitch black. They could see nothing beyond the small patch of light that spilled through the doorway. Junpei stuck his head through the door and looked around the room. Almost immediately, he spotted the blinking red light on the right wall.
I found it! The dead's right over here!
He stepped into the room and nearly fell down. The floor was slippery. What? He stopped and glanced down at his feet. What was...
Hey, what the hell are you doing? Get over there!
Junpei felt 7's heavy hand against his back and stumbled across the room. The other 3 piled in behind him. They all felt immediately that something was wrong. Nothing that could be easily identified, only a sense that something terrible shared the room with them. But there was no time to say so.
Quick! Get to the dead!
They all started running. In the dark, it was hard to tell where the wall was. All they could see was the tiny red light blinking at them over and over and over. Then finally, suddenly, they were there. In quick succession, they all slammed their hands against the scanner panel. Panting. 7 leaned against the wall, gulping air. As his breathing began to return to normal, he glanced at his left wrist and grunted.
It stopped. It stopped.
And laughter. Because I don't want to laugh in his voice. That's going to really be horrible. Junpei could hear him laughing in the dark, but could barely make out the larger man's face. What the... That was horrible retching sounds, but anyway. The sound of retching came from Santa's direction.
What the hell is this smell? This is vile! I'm gonna puke!
So desperate they had been in their race to the dead that no one had noticed the horrible smell that pervaded the room. It was a terrible, nauseating stench like burnt and rotten meat. Adrenaline had drowned it out, but now it rolled over Junpei in waves, forcing itself into his nose with every breath he took. He felt his stomach clench and bile rise up in his throat.
Let's get the lights on first. We'll switch over here.
The light that spilled in from the door barely illuminated a small switch plate next to the door. Slowly, with the toll of the last few minutes apparent in his gait, Seven walked towards it. He stopped as he got close and extended his fingers towards the switch. There was a soft click as the lights came on. It had scarcely faded when another noise pierced the air. A scream. Screaming noise from June. Junpei's breath stopped in his throat. His heart ceased to beat. Time froze. His mind scrambled to make sense of what he saw before him. What was left of the body sat in a sea of blood. Chunks of flesh torn from the body sat in the blood like tiny islands in a great red sea. A vast, ragged hole had been torn in the torso, and what remained of his intestines spilled out of it like fresh spaghetti. Smaller chunks of meat had splattered against the wall and become stuck there as they dried. Globules of yellowish fat have left trails like tiny slugs as gravity pulled them down the wall, even as they dried to it.
Looks like an explosion.
Seven's voice was low and strained.
Just like the ninth man. The detonator in his bracelet set off the bomb in his gut.
It's a good thing Clover's not here. It looked as though the explosion had been quite powerful. His legs were both bent in an odd, unnatural way, and his left arm had split open, exposing the painfully white bone of his ulna. His bracelet lay next to him. It seemed to have hit the wall hard enough to have shattered the display, which lay on the ground in pieces. Half of his head simply collapsed. The blood coating almost made it look like raw pizza dough covered in tomato sauce. His clothes, too, were covered in blood. The burgundy tie, the white shirt, the jacket with the yellow piping, and the gray slacks. They were all familiar to Junpei.
Is that Snake?
Santa's voice wavered as he spoke, his mouth dry. Oh my god. Finally, Junpei spoke. Why did this happen? And then June screaming no. Which I'm not going to scream. Suddenly June was screaming, her voice broken. It was an eerie scream, full of insanity, and not entirely human. No! No! I'm not going to scream that, I'm sorry. She shook her head violently and grabbed fistfuls of her own hair. Junpei could hear the sound of hair tearing. No! Stop it, June! He grabbed for her wrist, but as he did, June leapt up and ran, towards the exit. Please, get me out of here! You have to let me out of here! She screamed at the door and her fist slammed against it with a hollow sound. Junpei could see drops of blood on her knuckles. Why are you doing these horrible things to us? What did we do to deserve this? She screamed it again, a desperate, mindless cry. Her fists flailed against the door. Get me out of here! Please! Please, just let me out! Junpei couldn't watch anymore. He ran to June and wrapped his arm around her, pulling the screaming girl away from the door. No! Get off of me! Let me go! Let me go! She scrambled for a moment, her legs skittering across the floor, but her resistance didn't last long. As suddenly as her outburst had begun, it was over. The manic energy disappeared, and her body went limp in Junpei's arms. June collapsed towards the door, and Junpei knelt down with her. He felt drops of something warm and wet. Was she crying? A moment later, she began to sob. Her shoulders shook, and great hot tears rolled down her face like rain. We're gonna be fine. It's gonna be all right, June. It's going to be okay, Kenny. Her name was a whisper. I'll be here with you, okay? She nodded once. Thank you. Thank you so much, Junpei. Her trembling voice pulled at Junpei's heart. He stroked her hair gently. His face was so close to hers. The scent of her hair was nostalgic. Do you feel better? Yes, but I'd like to stay here for a little while at least. Junpei's body is so warm. Several minutes passed before June's tears had dried. Junpei stood up. He bent down, put his arms under June's, and helped her to her feet. They didn't speak. Neither did Seven or Santa. A person was dead. They had died in that room in a terrible way. Junpei knew there was no way he could make himself forget that. There was no way any of them could forget it, but mourning would do no good. They spread out to search the room, but each felt as if their heart was made of lead. Seek a way out. I tried to make that sound more sorrowful on purpose. And yes, I did just ruin the mood on purpose. Anyway, those letters written in blood. LLR. Do you think that might be some sort of dying message from Snake?
No, that's impossible. You saw the body. You aren't doing anything after something like that happens to you.
Then this...
The way the blood's dried tells you it's real old. Whoever's blood this is, it ain't Snake's.
Then you're saying this blood was put here a long time ago?
Yeah.
Creepy.
That's where we came in. I guess it's not locked, but there ain't really any point. All that's out there is the numbered door. We can't go back through the numbered door even if we wanted to.
Alright, let's see if anything happens when I turn you. Nope, nothing. Not even a drop. Is the pipe clogged? Doesn't look like the shower works. There's a piece of paper tied to this pipe with a wire. Notice, drainage valve operation. Please do not flush the water in these pipes. Doing so may cause the drain to overflow. I think it has something to do with this. Probably not. There's water coming out of the shower head. Let's see if... Shit, that's hot! Really hot! Man, that water must be just about fucking boiling. It looks like a card. Like a key card. I wonder if we can get to it somehow. Don't think so. It's too deep, I can't reach it.
There's nothing in the toilet. If there was, that would be gross. There might be something in the tank, you know? Let's open that shit up.
Red key card.
It's a red key card. Probably a key... Or it's a red card. Probably a key card. Do you remember if you saw a card reader anywhere around here?
Next toilet. It's a water tank for a toilet.
I've seen a lot of OC guys try and hide peace in something like this. Usually for a 187 or something. Guess they think it's clever. Don't know when they'll figure out everybody else thinks it's clever too.
Huh? I mean, I know peace, but what's OC?
Organized crime.
What is that? What is that? Some kind of police slang?
Huh? Probably.
Huh? What'd I say? Why does he look all sad now? It's not really important right now, guys. Let's just check it out, alright? Well, he's not wasting any time. Screwdriver again. It's a screwdriver. We can unscrew things with this. Was there something we needed to unscrew somewhere? Junpei reached for the broom, and as he grabbed it, he heard a soft voice from behind him. It was June. The rabbit hutch. Huh? He turned around. June still looked sadly pale, but there was a smile on her face. Oh, you just reminded me of it. The rabbit hutch, I mean. How did I remind you of something like that? Jumpy and the broom. You were always playing around with the broom in front of the rabbit hutch. I was? Don't you remember? Junpei stared at the broom in his hand. You mean, you don't remember that summer either? She looked very sad. He shook his head. Of course I remember. How could I forget something like that? It was terrible. They were in the 6th grade. Junpei and June had been assigned to take care of the classroom pets, the rabbits. Their chief duty was to clean the hutches every morning. On the final day of school, before summer vacation began, Junpei overslept. He rushed to school and found June standing in front of the rabbit hutches. No sooner had Junpei arrived than June began to cry. He had no idea why until he looked behind her into the rabbit hutch. The first thing he saw was blood. The hutch was filled with the dead bodies of the rabbits. Even after their teachers and friends came to see what the commotion was, June couldn't stop crying. I just kept crying and crying until you came over. You held my hand and you looked very serious and you said, "Don't cry. I'm going to catch the person who did this." After you told me that, I finally stopped crying. Well, the real fun started after you quit crying. You told me you were going to catch the killer together. June smiled, and a little of the flush of life returned to her cheek. Then we decided we'd ambush them. Yeah, I remember. The school also kept roosters and guinea pigs. Junpei and June had decided the murderer would likely return to finish off the rest of the animals. They would ambush the killer at night. Junpei and June hid behind the hutch at dusk and waited. It was a warm summer night. The quiet sound of crickets whispered through the air. As the sun went down, the stars began to wink at them from the sky. And June's, Akane Kuroshiki's face. That night was something Junpei knew he would never forget as long as he lived. But the murderer never showed up. We waited for them all summer vacation and they never showed up. Yeah, but the animals didn't get attacked either. I think all that work amounted to something, you know? He felt the same way, but it was good to hear her say it. Although, you know, if you think about it, we were probably taking on a lot more than we could handle. What do you mean? She looked up at him, confused. Well, come on! We were just kids. If whoever killed the rabbits had actually showed up, they probably would have had a knife or something. I mean, you must have been pretty worried, right? I wasn't worried. Because you were there with me. She blushed furiously. You know, no one else wanted to take care of the animals. Clearly embarrassed, she tried desperately to change the subject. I was the only one who asked to do it at first. Yeah, boys don't really want to bother with taking care of animals, you know? Well, yeah, but you asked to do it after I did, didn't you? If it wasn't the rabbits, they were going to make me do something else. You know how that school was. I figured it'd be better if I was working with somebody who wasn't too much of a loudmouth, right? Somebody who wasn't going to tell on me if I felt like blowing it off. Really? That's why you never volunteered? Yeah, it is. He nodded quickly and much too earnestly, and then quickly looked away at something very important. That hadn't been the reason, of course. He had asked to take care of the rabbits so that he could be near June. But it had been so long ago, he couldn't bring himself to tell her how he'd felt back then. It would be embarrassing. He took a quick breath to clear his head, tossed the broom up, then snatched it out of the air. Well, we don't really have time to be walking around memory lane like this, you know? We've got to figure out a way out of this room. Otherwise, yes. June nodded curtly and then turned and walked away. Junpei turned around and looked at the room. That snake's body. Chunks of flesh and organs still lay on the floor. The conversation he and June had been having scarcely fit their surroundings, but perhaps that was simply human nature. Despite such a situation, or perhaps because of it, the mind turned to the farthest thing from death that it could find. Still, Junpei couldn't help but feel a twinge of guilt at wanting so desperately to live when Snake lay dead before him. He had to live. He wanted a life again, a life with June in it. As he stared at the clumps of blackened flesh, all Junpei could think of was how much he wanted to live. What are you doing with the broom? Bucket. It's a tin bucket. Hey, Jumpy, you remember back in elementary school when you spilled all of our paint across the whole classroom? They made you clean it up and all they gave you was a sponge and a bucket like this. Hey, come on now. Can't we just leave the past in the past? A wooden box. There's something in here. Luminol. What the hell is this thing? Some kind of spray bottle? There's something written on it. Can't read anything else. The label's all faded.
Let me see that.
He just grabbed it from him. That wasn't very nice.
Oh, this is aluminol. You know, forensics guys use it at crime scenes.
Oh yeah, that stuff that glows blue when you spray it on blood. Even if the blood's been wiped off, it'll still glow. Well, that gives us some form of hint as to what to do over here.
Wait, you don't really think we're supposed to use the luminol here, do you?
Yeah, it does seem kind of weird to use it here, but maybe I should try it, just in case. LLR, LRL. Okay. Left, left, right, left, right, left. Left, right. Left, right, left. Well, I did what it said on the wall. I wonder if it actually did anything. Hey, this drain's acting up! What the hell did you do? I just messed with the valves a little. Nothing big. There must be water flowing through the pipe on the right. There's water pouring out of the drain. Blue key card. It's the blue key card. This is, the symbol for Mercury, isn't it? There was an elevator right outside of the big hospital room. I think that same symbol was on the card reader next to it. That's right. I guess that means we're not supposed to use this card in this room. Do you really think so? You don't think maybe we need it for this room and for the elevator? There's water pouring out of the drain. Nothing else interesting here. The red light's on, Jumpy. Great job, Jumpy. Both of the lights are on now. Now you just need to put in the password. Now I've got to figure out what the password might be. Maybe I can use the shower here to fill a bucket with hot water. Hey, Seven, could you turn on the shower? I'm going to put the bucket under the head.
Ah, okay, sure thing.
Bucket filled with hot water. It's filled with water. Try not to spill it, okay? It's heavy. Okay, I'll carry it. I don't know why, I'm just going to try that. Obviously, okay. Oh yeah, I have a screwdriver too. The fuck am I supposed to screwdrive? There's something that looks like tar inside the toilet bowl. If I flush the hot water from the bucket, that should clean it up. Huh. Oh. Let me just put the water in the actual tank then. Alright, so I just pour the hot water into this tank, and...
Looks like you filled it. Now you should be able to flush it, right? There's probably a handle somewhere on the tank that you can pull.
You think so?
Serious? Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Alright, let's flush the hot water. Well, there it goes, just like a toilet should work. 185 equals.
That stuff's washed off. Looks like the writing was numbers. See it?
185 equals? What is this?
You got me, it just looks like numbers.
The dirt we flushed out is settled to the bottom of the bowl. It says 185 equals on the inside of the toilet bowl. Huh. I'm just going to try all my atoms on this. I don't know how a broom or a screwdriver would help. I'm going to try. Both the lights are on. We should be able to enter the password now. What's with these E and C keys? E means enter and C means clear, I think. So after you put in the password, hit E. If you screw it up, hit C. I have a guess, because I don't remember this quite. 1, 8, 5, and then the digital root of all those numbers. So 8, 9, so 5. Damn it. Well, I've got no fucking clue. Oh, this might help. The thermometer was screwed onto the wall. That meant that Junpei needed to take the screws out with the screwdriver. While he was so engaged, Santa suddenly spoke. Hey, Junpei, you know why thermometers only go up to 107 degrees Fahrenheit, or 75 degrees Celsius like this one? Junpei answered without taking his eyes off the screw. No, can't say I ever thought about that. At 107 degrees, the cells in the human body start to die and the organs begin to shut down. The proteins in your cells start to harden. It's like when you hard-boil an egg. Even if you cool it down afterwards, it won't go back to being a raw egg. In other words, it's dead. That's why thermometers don't go past 107. There's no point. Why had Santa brought that up, Junpei wondered. Oh yeah? He continued to work at the screw. But it's pretty rare for a fever to get that high. Even viruses and stuff don't usually drive the body temperature up to 107. Of course, there are other external things that could. Like what? Well, let's see. Something like getting locked in a sauna, or getting thrown into an incinerator, or been burned to death. Yeah, I guess that would get a little hotter than 7 degrees. 107 degrees. Junpei gave a short, barking laugh. A moment later, the screw fell off. With a small tug, Junpei pulled the thermometer from the wall. All right, I got it. He looked up and saw Santa glaring at a blank section of the wall. Huh? What's up? Nothing. Forget about it. Santa spun around and walked off, away from Junpei. But as Junpei watched him go, he didn't look angry. He looked very, very sad. Oh, you took the thermometer off. It says open at the bottom of the cage. I wonder what it means. Maybe when it gets that hot, something will open. The dirt we flushed out settled to the bottom of the bowl. Well, that doesn't help then. Anymore. Yeah, if I can get this hot water on the thermometer, then maybe... Alright, thermometer, let's get this party started. Yep, looks like that's doing the trick. There goes the gauge, and now it's at the open mark. Huh, it opened. What's this? Looks like there's a piece of paper in here. Okay, so 157 plus 185. Or 957. Oh boy. 95. 1142. Okay then. 142. Okay, what did I do wrong? $185. God damn it. 957. Okay. 957 plus 185. I guess maybe there's something I'm supposed to use the broom for too, obviously, but there's some toilet paper on the shelf. That's not helpful. Dividing wall that separates the toilets. A skinny shelf. Why do I feel like there's supposed to be something important about this? Some toilet paper on the shelf. Okay, maybe not then. The divider between the stalls on the other side of this wall. No, I don't want to think about that. The fuck do I do? The light bulb provides light for this room. Not file. You know, if you look at it real close, you can see it's got these lines cut in it that kind of spiral up the shaft. Okay then. That helps, but I'm not sure how. I already checked all 3 toilets, you know. Nothing unusual there. Nothing unusual about this toilet, thank God. The tank is where the red card was. Nothing here now. I really feel like there's something important with that, but I don't know what it would be. There's no more hot water. I can't flush it anymore. A shelf. There's nothing on it. Toilet paper. Oh. Okay. Come back. What if I wrap the toilet paper around the broom? Oh, so you wrap the toilet paper around the broom, huh? Or, oh, so you wrap it up. That was Santa just. Looks like the symbols line up perfectly. It says 364 plus. Or 634. 957 plus 634 plus 185 equals 1776. I think that's the right one if memory serves right. Which it hasn't so far. But hey. 1776? Hell yeah! You found it! Outside of the shower room was a hallway that extended off to the left and right. At the right end was a large iron door. They'd moved a few steps toward the door when Junpei heard the sound of metal on metal. They turned around. Seven was doing something to the door of the shower room. What are you doing, Seven?
Well, I figure maybe we might want to come back here sometime. So I stuck the broom in there to keep the door from shutting. Alright, let's go.
With that, he stood up and began walking down the hallway. He brushed past Junpei and kept going. After a moment, the rest of them followed him. Before long, they found themselves at the large iron door. They had only been there for a moment when Jun spoke up. Jumpy, look. He turned. There on the right side of the hallway was a piece of paper attached to the wall. Junpei ran over and peeled it off. It's a map of the ship's interior. It said sea deck in the upper left corner. From what he could tell, it was a map of the floor they were on. There would be time to look at it later. Junpei folded the map and stuffed it into his pocket. Ha! Ha 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 ha! Ha! Back at the door, the four of them... No, by the way, I'm not laughing about like some... It's not necessarily a spoiler type thing, because it already happened in the last one. Back at the door, the four of them lined up in front of it. Santa stepped forward. He grabbed hold of the door and then turned to look back at the rest of them. Ready? I'm gonna open it. They nodded. Santa nodded back and threw the door open. All four of them leapt through. It took only a moment for them to realize where they were. They'd been there only a short time ago. It was the large hospital room filled with countless beds. Lotus and Clover looked up as they entered. Ace was there as well, although he looked as though he had only just woken up. The moment they spotted Junpei, Lotus and Clover headed straight for him. As she neared him, Lotus drew back her hand and slapped him, open-palmed across the face. How could you do this to us? Her face was furious. She grabbed Junpei by the collar and shook him violently. Clover didn't touch him, but the hate in her eyes was no less potent. It was Seven who stopped them.
Knock it off! We've got bigger shit to worry about right now.
His deep voice echoed across the massive room. Lotus glared at Seven, but let Junpei go after one last vicious shake. What?
Go have a look. I stuck a screwdriver in the door. That door over there, the one without a number. So long as the screwdriver's there, it can't shut, so you can get in there.
Seven also explained how they might find the shower room, and how he'd use the broom to ensure the door remained open there as well. Then you're saying we can go through without passing through the numbered door?
Yeah, that's about the size of it.
What the hell is in there?
You'll know when you see it.
Lotus and Clover looked at one another for a moment, then nodded and stepped through the door. By then, Ace had made his way to them, moving with the stiff, shuffling steps of someone who had only just awoken from a lengthy slumber. My goodness. I know I said I was sure you'd come back for me. I didn't think it would happen so soon, though. Ace shook his head weakly. Should I go as well? Seven nodded. Very well. Ace followed Lotus and Clover with his stiff, tired gait. By the way, what I was laughing at was the fact that they just got back to where they were just at. More skip texty. Squeal of tortured metal made Junpei's teeth curl. Agagaba. She was sad because brother dead, and whatnot. Somebody probably killed him. There's probably two people, actually, blah blah. This is the part where everyone's conspiring against each other. Well, not necessarily that, but where everyone's all like, holy shit, what if Zero's here and whatnot, and blah 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 blah. Was Zero still on the ship with them? Let's choose. Of course. Of course he was. That was obvious. Zero was somewhere on the ship, but Junpei had no idea where. Junpei mumbled to himself, lost in thought. Where could Zero be hiding? Suddenly everyone went very quiet. Silence was cold and clammy and blah 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 blah. More skippy texty. She says, I think Zero's one of us. And I have the possibility of saying, well, that's possible, or that's crazy. And last time I chose, well, that's possible, so... That's crazy! You fucking bitch! Don't care if your brother died. That's crazy! Anyway. Now I feel like a dick. Anyway. Isn't the ship going to sink in a few hours? If Zero was here with us, he'd be putting himself in danger. Why the hell would he do something like that? There's no motive. Clover looked up at Junpei and her face fell. You don't believe me. Her eyes were so pitiful. The moment Junpei's met them, he felt his heart tighten. He didn't think what he said was wrong, but perhaps the way he said it had been. He'd been too insensitive. Clover had just lost her brother. His death would have been bad enough, but she'd also seen the blasted wreck of his body. Junpei barely knew him, and the sight of him had been enough to make him sick. What Clover has felt, he couldn't even begin to imagine. In the mental state she must have been, and it was understandable that she would look at those around her with suspicion. She felt everyone was against her. The least Junpei could have done was try to understand what she was feeling. He felt ashamed of what he'd said. Perhaps he thought I should apologize. But before that apology could begin, Clover, I understand what you're feeling. You don't feel that you can trust any of us. Ace had beaten Junpei to the punch. As he spoke to Clover, his face was calm and friendly. But you have to understand, the more we distrust one another, the further we fall into our true foe's trap. Zero was the one who did those horrible things to your brother. Do you want to let yourself be manipulated by someone who would do such a horrible thing? Clover didn't answer. She didn't even look at Ace. The whole time her eyes were on Junpei. He could feel Clover's eyes boring into him. They were the color of a deep winter lake. Junpei saw no suspicion in them, only sadness. Then, in that horrible silence, they heard a bell begin to ring. It was the clock at the central staircase. 3 a.m. That means we have 3 hours left. Then we need to move, now. 7, Clover. I know how you feel, but you do understand that right now it's important we trust one another, don't you? 7 and Clover remained silent. Their eyes were looking at something somewhere else, very far away. We must go. We have very little time left. Ace's words put their feet to moving. They all knew where they were going. The next destination was Mercury. Seems a good place to stop, so let's save and whatnot. Next time on 999, to Mercury! Wait, what? Oh, I forgot to hit stop. Okay, stop.